Hey guys, my name is Terry and I'm a collectibles dealer. I'm a big fan of music, but I'm not an expert. That's why we've got Johnny D.
Yo, this is Kashif, and you're in the mix with Johnny D.
Johnny D, you're a big dance music guy, and I know that that's your passion, but I know you've had some hip hop adventures too. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, I'll dig into a bunch. One that I know will excite you is I was there early on the Eminem situation where I was trying to sign him early on before the whole Dre thing came about. A good friend of mine who I know my whole life, was a Wall Street guy, and he had a lot of money and he had a lot of people around him with money, and we both knew about the whole Eminem thing. There was like a cassette that was floating around. I think it was the DC area, and it was starting, it was an underground type of a thing. There was no inkling that Eminem was like this pop guy. It was a pure underground type of a hip hop cassette that was floating. So my boy called me up and he said, "Listen, we're gonna have lunch at this place Lemon in Union Square." And I went there and it was myself, my boy. He had a couple other guys that came with him, I guess that on the financial side. And it was Eminem and Paul, his manager. And M was great and just, real professional. And at the time, um hip hop was doing a lot of crazy stuff because you're coming kind of at, Wu-Tang had done its thing a couple of years before, Dre, whatever. So there was this kind of weird thing in the late 90s where there was kind of, I guess there was an opening, which I guess it all lines up. And M, was he was just totally all, professional guy. And what he said, what his manager said, which was very strange, and the reason we didn't pursue the deal was he said, "I'm not concerned about the advance, but I want $1 million video." And at that time, the only $1 million videos that existed were Michael Jackson, and I think Missy had just done $1 million video, which was unheard of. Because the thing about a video thing, especially on a financial level, and when I was at Atlantic Records at that time, you could spend $200,000 on a video. You send it to MTV, VH1, and BET. If none of them play it, you have a $200,000 tin that's sitting in a warehouse somewhere that's never going to get play, and there's never going to be any money out of it. So videos were very risky. Now, at that point, nobody knew who Eminem was. So to put $1 million into that would have been crazy. I mean, he could have been the most theatrical guy in the world. Obviously, there's a lot of magic involved. It's theatric, it's the track and everything else. He goes to California. I believe he was on Big Boy's station on Power 106, and I believe they were playing the demo and Dre heard it, and that's how the whole Dre connection came. It was like a needle in a haystack, but that
I
was
think
his.
I think it was some kind of competition in California, wasn't it? Where Dre had heard it.
I had just heard that Big Boy was playing the track. Dre heard it and he had called up, and obviously Dre had the direct pipeline. The funny thing was the guy that was with me for years, it was my friend for a long time. Every time there was this milestone in the Eminem world, he gave me the call, like, the ground, the American Music Award, 8 Mile. Oh, it's the number one movie and it's the number one soundtrack. Oh, no, now we just signed 50 Cent. Oh, and we're just sitting there just looking at this monster just gaining momentum, and it was like, oh yeah, here's his next record. And M just kept going. Years later he started a station on Sirius XM. It's still going, Shady 45, I believe. And my boy Reef has been the program director, or was for a very long time from inception. I think he left for a minute to go to Apple Music. But so yeah, I have a lot of different ties to M and stuff. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy story too. When you're that close to something that gets that big, it's pretty crazy.
But it sounds like your hands were kind of tied in that situation. I mean, your record company wasn't going to put $1 million into a video.
Well, I was doing that independently. That was gonna have nothing to do with Atlantic at the time.
Uh,
So that was just me getting down with these guys, and they knew, like at the time, I knew Molly Mall and, like I said, Pharrell and Premier. I was gonna make the record company. The other guys were gonna just finance it, and then we were gonna go from there. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so I was doing, it was like some side situation from Atlantic at that point. I mean, I had my own label, but we were gonna look to maybe do it independently, but with money. So, but because I was in the major label structure, I knew how to I play their game with money from these people, but we'd be independent, which would have been a much bigger payoff.
Were the money guys into it? I mean, were they considering putting a
The
million
main
dollars
guy
into
that
this
was with
video?
me would have easily pulled the trigger on it because he was actually a hip hop guy. He loved hip hop. So he was like one of those, like, Italian guys that just loves hip hop. He was that guy. So it was just, 24 hours a day, Nas and everything else. So that's where it could, but you know what? At the end of the day, Dre was so magical. I'm not going to sit here and say I was going to have that kind of a success. I just can't even imagine that. The Dre thing, that was all magical. The timing was there. You have Jimmy Iovine overseeing this. I mean, it's just, you're just checking every bar off. So
Yeah, it's pretty
incredible
amazing.
situation.
What,
Yes.
speaking of Dre, any interaction with Dre or?
So, when I was working at Sin Street Information Network, which was my first proper job in the music business in 1992, we were an independent promotion company based in New York, and my boss had a lot of connections, like, with every different label all over the country, and we were covering every kind of a genre of music. Now, I happen to be this guy that was really a dance guy that really knew hip hop, so I was that really rare, and I still consider myself to this day a rare person that can have that conversation from the biggest dance record to the biggest hip hop record. I mean, I don't subscribe to mumble rap that's going on today, but at that point, I was very heavily into it. And Interscope was a big account for my boss's company. And there was a guy named Mark Benish that was the promotion guy. He's one of the he was a revered promo guy. He was at Columbia for years, really, really like looked at as the promo guy, and he had given my boss a cassette, and he goes, "This is coming out soon. It's this, Dr. Dre with Snoop." Now, I knew Dr. Dre from obviously NWA and the World Class Wrecking Crew, but Snoop had only done the one record, which was Deep Cover from the soundtrack with Dre. And he brought the cassette back. My boss went to California, and he just, he didn't think anything of it because I think we had worked Tupac earlier than that. So he gives it to me, and as soon as I hear Nothing But a G thing, I just lost it. So I became, this is my project. And I remember getting the cassette, and I made an 80-minute cassette of just making 3 minutes, record 3 minutes, because at the time we didn't have a CD of it. It was like, this is, when CDs were kind of there was no burns of CDs. So I had to sit there and record, Nothing But a G thing, I don't know, 20 times. The guy was in my office wanting to shoot himself, but I was just playing it constantly, constantly. So when we put out the 12-inch, it was a work record because at that point, even though Dre was Dre, I learned one thing in promotion. There's no such thing as a short thing. You could Michael Jackson, until if you don't come correct or whatever, you could do all the promotion and marketing in the world. If for some reason things don't line up, they don't line up. And with the Dre, it was kind of a slow build, but I was so over the top over it. And, Mark and the guys at Interscope knew that I was this guy. Now, the funny thing about this, and I was thinking about this when I looked through my test pressings and different label copies, that was Death Row slash Interscope, but it was distributed through Atlantic and Warner at the time. And when that type of a situation happens, just to take a side into the test pressing acetate world, when that happens and there's not a proper point person, it gets a little messy where you won't do the proper acetate or the test pressing, even the promo runs. It gets very weird because it's like, okay, Death Row. They don't really like, what do they know about pressing records? They're like new in the game. They go to Interscope. Interscope's like, okay, that's or that's Warner's job to press the records. So it kind of gets passed around. And when I look at the records and stuff, you're like, oh, wow, that was pressed here. It wasn't pressed through the regular channels. So it's a lot of weird stuff that goes on the pressing side of that. That was just a little sidebar. But getting back to the record, Nothing But a G Thing obviously was the first single, and it really started to build and it got crazy. And then I believe after that was Dre Day and then Let Me Ride or whatever. But I want to share something which I thought was really cool. Um, so my boss comes back from California on another trip, and he has this. And now he used to smoke weed all the time, and I don't get high at all. But he comes back, and this is on his desk. So I said, like, what is this? He goes, yeah, it's kind of cool. You open it, it's a promo, and you open it up, and it's got the CD, and you can put your Easy Wider or Bamboo, whatever, right there. So I took it from him because he, like I said, I was so nuts about this project that the hat, the shirts, whatever came in because they really weren't. It wasn't really on their radar. They looked at like, yeah, it's another hip hop thing, whatever. I saw this valuable. Now I just saw they came out with a reissue, which is you can see it's a different color. There's some different parts to it. On the back of it, it's got like Aftermath, which obviously didn't exist with originally. So that's one of the different. So this is worth 1 million. This is worth 20. That's what that is. Um,
Very cool.
so yeah, I thought that was a cool piece. So yeah, the Dre, and we had a lot of success, and we went from the whole Dre thing, and then we dropped Snoop, and then we came out with now Snoop was kind of autopilot because we came with What's My Name, and then Gin and Juice was the next single, and Snoop was just, he just kept going at a crazy pace. And then we also had Murder Was the Case at that time, which was the soundtrack that had Nate Dogg and stuff. And Regulate was on there, which was a big promo only 12-inch Warren G with the sample.
Yeah.
Again, I do have a couple of bits I'll show you real quick on the record side since this is what we're doing.
Oh,
So
let's see it.
so Nothing But a G Thing test pressing, just a regular white label. If you look in the grooves, it's got, the actual etching and the thing. That's how you could tell if it's legit or somebody just put a white label over it. So this was how the Nothing But a G Thing test pressing was. Then I had we had it overseas, which was Warner Electro Atlantic. So that was the test pressing from the UK, which was kind of cool. Then after that, and this is where it gets crazy, where I was telling you. So now I'm sorry, Dre Day is on Rainbow. Now, Rainbow was an independent company that they were known, a lot of independent record labels would press with them. They also had the capability to do colored vinyl and do 10 inches. So they were doing different things. So at the time, the labels, the major labels were using Specialty, which was the main one. And Specialty really didn't do a lot of, and it was a waiting list, but it's kind of telling that these were pressed on the indie. Like you would think they should have gone through the proper channel. My favorite one from the album was Let Me Ride, and this one to me is crazy because handwritten with the catalog. I believe this is the only one. I've never seen any. Like I have two Dre Days. I think I have two G things, but and this is the only one from Rainbow with the stuff. I've never seen this, and this is my favorite cut off the album actually. And then to go one more, if anybody were looking at our older podcast, so this is Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, Natural Born Killers. So this is what we had discussed, which was the typewritten labels on a test pressing. So this is cool, and it's not that it's not rare, but it's not as rare because there was probably at least 300 of these done. So in
Right.
the test pressing world, where you're looking at the 13525, this to me is like the advanced promo run, but it is a test pressing.
But that Let Me Ride is probably with a
Let me
handwritten
ride.
and
'Cause, I mean, it had the writing and the date and the catalog number. When you see the dates on stuff, I mean, listen, there's no proof of this, but when you see the dates, that's usually, first of all, you know, most DJs, especially hip hop DJs, they don't give a shit. They're not going to put dates on a record. So that's coming from a person that had to actually log it in. They had to they had to give information to someone above them.
yeah.
So it was a quality control. They were listening for pops and ticks or whatever. Or, okay, Mr. Iovine, this came in on this date. Like you don't put dates for any other reason.
Is there any other way to differentiate between a quality control test pressing and another test pressing with a handwritten
No,
label?
I really, I've only seen one, I think, in my travels that said quality control on the label on the test pressing, which was kind of sick. It said it, and it was, yeah, it was a very odd piece.
Was it handwritten or was it printed quality control?
No, it was a regular Columbia test pressing label, but then over it there was like a sticker that said
Huh.
it's a wild piece, man. Like that
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That blows my
Uh,
mind.
and so obviously, I mean, you're throwing out some huge names, Eminem, Dr. Dre. I mean, you've kind of intersected with a lot of legends. What about any other legends in particular?
Yeah. Well, another one that was, a tremendous success story was the Wu-Tang Clan at the time, similar to the Dre, where it was Death Row, Interscope, Through Atlantic. That was Loud, RCA, and RCA was cold as ice. I mean, RCA at this point, they were literally at that point, they were even documenting, they were still living off of Elvis's sales. Like they had given Elvis, I don't know, some $10 million back, whatever. I think they was still literally, that place was running from Elvis like 40 years later. But they were really cold. And Wu-Tang Clan, well, to really give a little quick Wu-Tang Clan story. So the RZA was Prince Raheem on Tommy Boy years before. And he had a record called "Oh We Love You, Raheem," which was a garbage record. It was like him with girls. It was garbage. So that obviously didn't do anything at Tommy Boy. At that time, when you have De La Soul and Digital Underground, everything else they were doing. So that was a stiff. So now RZA tries to like go in, play the Superman, changes cape, and now he's coming out as the RZA, and he's ghetto, and he's all weeded out or whatever, and he's shopping this demo of the Wu-Tang Clan with Protect Your Neck on it, and nobody wants it. And when I say nobody wants it, I'm talking about from A to Z. You pick a label, every person passed on this. There's not one label person from A&M, Craig Atlantic, well, name a label, they passed on it.
Wow.
So Loud, for whatever reason, was like, I'll just take a shot. Now, as a label owner, I could understand, how do you even take control of this? You got 10 guys, whatever it was, every one of them is out of their mind. There is a babysitting element when you're in the record label side. So I can understand it scaring off most people. However, the quality's there. I mean, you listen to Protection Act. That was a smash on Wu-Tang Records, which RZA had pressed himself. So anyway, Loud puts the record out, and we have the account. RCA was a big account for us, and we're having a lot of problems with this record because they're picking the singles, but the group isn't connecting on a global on a national level. So we put out Method Man, and I'm sorry, we put out Protect Your Neck, and that's kind of doing something. And then we put out Method Man, and it's kind of doing something. And then we put out Cream, and then Shame on and then and then we start putting Mystery of Chess Boxing. We're doing all these records, and every time one starts to happen, another one starts to happen. So I had a meeting, and the people at Loud, believe it or not, there were multiple times where they were like, pull the plug, put your efforts toward the alcoholics, make room. True story. They literally were like, maybe we should forget about Wu-Tang Clan. And I came up with this idea, and I'm not by any means a genius, but I was just like, why don't we do like a promo copy of the album, reship that out to all these DJs, let everybody play what they're going to play. So in the box in Texas, which was like the equivalent to a Hot 97 in New York and a Power 106 in Los Angeles, they were the hottest thing in Texas. They started playing this remix of Method Man. And it started getting phones. When you get phones, that means people are calling, what is this? They want to buy it. And that's how the whole game of promotion and marketing works. With retail, so many records are signed based on phones years ago. Now, Hootie and the Blowfish, that sold 25 million records at Atlantic, that was signed off of research. That wasn't an A&R guy. That wasn't some, oh, wow, this guy's brilliant. No, that was, they got play on a radio station. The phones will lighten up, and then somebody decided to follow that. So Wu-Tang Clan, was, you had Method Man and you have Riz, you have all these Old Dirty Bastard, you have all this personality. They're all over the place. So when that approach was taken and it was just about, we're not going to go single by single, the record started to take off. And obviously, it branched, Method Man had his own deal, and Ghostface Killer and Inspector Deck and Jizzer, and they all started their own thing. My favorite of the group was Old Dirty Bastard. And I just he was just totally out of his mind. And I mean, he was always drugged up, whatever, but you know, to me, I always liked the comedy and things, and you couldn't get more comedic than Old Dirty Bastard. Like, he is, whether he was straight high or whatever it was, his whole mentality, his delivery, because you're seeing this like goofy, crazy guy, but he's really intelligent. It was almost like the Bismarcky thing. Biz used to come off like this goofy fun, but Biz was like really, really intelligent. So if you really listen to what Old Dirty Bastard is saying in his songs or when he would speak, there's an underlying of intelligence. Like a perfect example, on Old Dirty Bastard, there was a thing called box talk. So Box Talk came out and it used to be on television. So it was going against MTV. So what happened was you'd pay $2, you go into it and say, "Oh, I want to hear whatever you want to hear. Wu-Tang Clan, Cream. I want to see this video." And you'd call up on the phone, you'd pay $2, and it would be in a queue. So it'll eventually come to you. But 20 people before you want to hear Offspring or whatever the hell other videos in this thing. Jukebox, exactly like a jukebox. There was a thing called Box Talk with Old Dirty Bastard. And it was right before the return of the 36 Chambers, which was his first album with Brooklyn Zoo and Shimmy Shimmy Ya. And it's RZA. And so Box Talk, what they would do, so the box was the station. Box Talk would be, we're gonna do an EPK, which is, we're gonna give this whole 4-minute video of what's about to happen. So they have a video following around Old Dirty Bastard, RZA, and it is the sickest thing you've ever seen. It's actually on the definitive Old Dirty Bastard, which I produced, which we'll get to at the end. And I'll tell you how I got that facilitated. And he's walking around Manhattan and he's high as a kite, and RZA, his eyes are shut, and they're just talking the most ridiculous shit. And they're on Times Square, they're going into a store and they're buying gum and they're drinking, smoking weed, and Old Dirty Bastard. But the point that I'm trying to bring up, because it's, if you have 5 minutes in your day, you need to go to YouTube. You need to look up ODB Box Talk.
Box talk.
It'll change your life. And he's walking around and he's like, and he's just out of his mind. It was actually on my radio station last night. My daughter was in the car listening because I don't think she ever paid attention. And I was trying to explain to her, you have to see it. I love it, so I could hear the audio. But when you see him, he's spitting in the camera, goes into a store, and he's like, "In the city of New York." And he's just, but the point I was trying to make about his intelligence, while he's doing his rap, he starts going, "I'm bad, bad, Leroy Brown." So now he's doing Jim Croce. So my point is, he's not that dumb. Like, these people, they come off whatever, and you could easily just discount them that they don't really, but they're so in tune with pop culture. And for him to do a Jim Croce, Bear Leroy Brown, and then he's talking about original, Cool Herc and hip hop, and he's talking about how this album and Wu-Tang Clan are bringing hip hop back. It's not about this watered down stuff, and he's knocking R&B. It's absolutely brilliant. So anyway, that's ODB. So now we fast forward a little. After I promote the Wu-Tang Clan and all these things, I'm kind of cool with Pharrell. Pharrell's like, "Yo, I'm gonna be in the studio producing." I got a call from Sylvia Rone. I'm gonna produce Old Dirty Bastard. So now I'm like having a heart attack because I tell my friend Rich, I'm like, I gotta get to that session. And um we couldn't get in there, but what was happening was ODB comes to one of the sessions probably 4 hours late, and he's walking all over the place, and it's just like it's a disaster of a session. I think we had lunch with Pharrell in the middle of this, and he decides he's gonna mic the entire studio because Oh Dirty Bastard, he'd go in the booth, he'd walk around. He was saying so much crazy shit. Pharrell was like, just record everything he says. So now, for ODB walks in the building and everything he's doing is being recorded. At the time, Khalees was for Pharrell. She was doing a lot of music. She did that big record, Milkshake. But if you listen to Got Your Money, that's her on it. So Pharrell used to kind of keep all his people together. So Khalees was in the studio doing stuff, and he had all of this tape of ODB that he had to put together. Forget about as a regular producer, that puzzle that he had to put together to put that album together was absolutely I'll give that so much more credit than it deserves as an album because he had to do 10 times the amount of work to be with this crazy guy. Anyway, years later, I put together the definitive Old Dirty Bastard, and I put one disc together, which was all of the hits, obviously, and whatever I thought was great. I love the radio version of Brooklyn Zoo because the radio edits from RZA were always very cool. He would get the curse instead of just doing a backwards move, like if you said the word like shit, it's just ish. He would do like a with like some kind of a Wu-Tang whip sound. So he's were very creative with his radio edits. So I made sure that was on there. But on the bonus disc, I put his videos. And when I went to get that box talk I was talking about, MTV had bought the company just to put them out of business because they didn't want the competition. So when I called up the people in MTV, I said, I really want to put this on there. And they said, we won't give it to you. If you have it, you can use it. And I happen to have a video of it because when I called Electra, yeah, I was like, I have to have my own VHS of this. So I use my video. If you look at the DVD, you see like the wavy log because that was actually from the video. But the crazy thing was one more thing about ODB. There was an MTV newsreel that was running, and it was him driving around with in a limousine with his daughter, and he's drinking champagne and he's talking, and he goes and he has a welfare card. And if you look at his first album, it is his welfare card is the actual artwork. He was cashing his checks. And the government found out about this. Like, wait a second, this guy has a platinum album. He's in a limousine with his daughter. He's drinking champagne and he's cashing checks from the government. So they were like, you can't put that. Cause I also had that. They were like, you can't use that. So they wouldn't let me put that one, but I was able to put the box talk, which was phenomenal. And yeah, Old Dirty Bastard definitely has a crazy special place in my heart. But Wu, Dre, Snoop and M. I mean, those were three really. And I also worked Tribe Called Quest at the time. I was doing a lot of hip hop promotion at that point. It was a really rich time in music.
Well, those are incredible stories. I mean, incredible legends. For me, Wu Tang and NWA were always my two favorite kind of like super groups, or
Yes.
at least the groups that had the most influence or that I enjoyed the most. I got a poster a while ago from a performance of the Juice Crew, Cold Chillin' tour from 1991, uh, and I'll definitely get a photo of the poster and put it up here so people can
Yeah.
see it. But it does at the very bottom of the poster, at the bottom of the bill, is the Genius, and
Right. That was before everything. That was
that's
before
before it's
British.
91,
That
right?
was before, yeah, it was before
It's
the whole
kind of
Wu-Tang.
like
Long
kind of like
time
a
before.
kind of
Yeah.
like a rookie card of
Yes.
Jizza, right?
And the Jizza really, I think of all of them, probably the most respected and most underperformed as far as sales are concerned, when you looked at how they all broke down.
Well, I mean, everyone's got their favorite, right? And some people
Yes.
will, go to their grave saying ODB. And it's such a fine line between genius and insanity. I mean, I always believe that.
Oh yeah, no, listen, there was, my lawyer was funny. The lawyer that I used was the Wu-Tang lawyer. And I used him for that reason. I met him and I knew he was handling that. I said to myself, when you hire a lawyer, everything is an hourly wage. And I said to myself, this guy just from the Wu-Tang Clan had to deal with Geffen with Jizza, Def Jam with Method Man, Elektra, Warner Music Group with ODB. He had RCA obviously for the Wu-Tang Clan. So he knew those contracts inside and out. So there was no time being wasted. Obviously the parameters are different, but it's the same contract. So I used him for years. I'll tell you a quick funny story about ODB and him. So ODB had gotten pulled over with a gun charge, and he was gonna go to jail. So he came out on bail or whatever. And my good friend at the time, who was at RCA, was on the conference call listening to this. And this lawyer is saying, okay, Mr. Dirty, and he's calling him Mr. Dirty. Just the thought of that. And he's like, "Oh, Mr. Dirty, was the gun in your hand?" And ODB's like, "Ah, you're going, Mr. Dirty." And just picture this guy, some 70-year-old, hunch over, Mr. Dirty. Just keep it. That just blows my mind. That's
Yeah.
why I call it Mr.
That's
Dirty.
uh,
Hysterical.
that's fantastic. Do you think that it's a common story in the record business where someone obviously who everyone agrees is just like one of the most talented groups ever and they have trouble getting signed in the beginning? Is it the point where you have the hit record like Protect Your Neck, or when someone listens to that they're like, okay, then there's no matter how difficult it may seem, or I mean at that point it's inevitable and so they get signed? Is that the point, or
Yeah,
is it?
no, I think that, I mean, we could do set we could do an actual exhibit on how the record companies, what they do right and wrong. But i- I say it all the time. There was some incredible records that were due to come out on 9/11. That was a Tuesday. And you know what? What happened on 9/11? You can plan. What do they say now, Case? You can, plan and predict it, but you can't predict the weather. Like, you can have everything lined up and it just doesn't work. With the record companies, like we always talk about with the test pressings and the assays, how oh, they did it two-sided, or it's handwritten. There really is no rhyme or reason. When it comes to the record company people, I was a dying breed. When I got into the business and I got into the major label structure, people used to come over to me and tell me, "You're a character. There's no more of you. This business does not have that anymore." For years, when you spoke to anyone about the record business from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, there were these people that were like promotion people, but they were known because they were passionate and they had some kind of a vision and they had some kind of a juice. That doesn't it was going away dramatically. That's why Wu-Tang didn't get signed. People didn't have the balls to say, "I believe in this." And then, you need two things. You need to say, "I want to do it," and then you need somebody to write that check. So if your boss doesn't believe in it, he's gonna have final say over if that check gets written. But um there are so many things that happened by accident. We discussed the Fugees. Killing Me Softly was never slated to be a single, winds up being their biggest single. That's crazy. If you sit back and you're the producer, I say to yourself, like, am I losing my mind? Like, you really start to second and third guess your moves because you're in the studio thinking this is going to be how it's going to play out, and the curveballs come all day. Wu-Tang is the perfect example of the curveball because nobody wanted them. They just didn't they didn't the people didn't see it. Another thing that happens in the major label structure is you're at Atlantic, I'm at Universal or MCA at the time. Um, I kind of like it, but now I hear you like it. That's things get signed like that all the time, just to block the other one. Don't let them have it. The Macarena, you familiar with that record?
Sure, sure.
I was the first person in the country to go after that record. Now, on my discography, on my resume, do I want to have Macarena? Absolutely not. Do I like the record? Can't stand the record. However, guy came to me in my company and said, "There's a record being played at Power 96 in Miami. It's the biggest thing." He called these people up. I called them up because these guys called the Bayside Boys. They put this record together. I called the guys up. I'm like, "I'm going to sign the record." I was signing it just like that, just based off of one station. I was going to get the green light on my company to do it. I'm all ready. I'm going. I call up the legal department. I'm like, "Listen, got to figure out the money. It's going to be a single deal, maybe with a second single option with an album, but I don't really care about that. It's all about the single." RCA owned the sample because that's a sample. All those guys, that's a sample of an old BMG control title. As soon as BMG found out Warner wanted it, it was blocked. RCA put it out. by default.
Wow.
Fault. That was a gift. And then they had the Lou Bega, Mambo Number Five, and the Scatman, all these like gimmicky bullshit records that sold millions. There was no A&R person. That was, I'm not saying I'm responsible for the Macarena, but I was there. I was there early on, and me getting my machine behind me to say, we're going to give you money was the alert that BMG needed. No, do not give it to them. And that's how that worked.
It's almost like when people know you as a collector and you start going after
Same
certain
exact thing.
things.
Horrible. It's a horrible thing. You have to lie. I'm not a liar. I'm not a good liar at all. You need to be. You need to play. You have to be a poker player in this game.
But I guess imitation is the best form of flattery, is what people
Yes.
say. But
Yes.
it means you're on to something, though, when
Yeah.
people, or that you have a certain amount of credibility and people
Well,
respect what you're
well,
doing.
that was the funny part was at that point. I mean, I had three of the biggest records of the decade that I had signed or was put together. So, you know, I mean, it's crazy if I would have wound up with that because I would have been like, oh, like, how does the guy even have that? I mean, that was, like I said, that's not a record I would be proud of, but it's kind of crazy to be there. We wound up signing this guy, Jason Flom, who was one of the presidents of Atlantic at the time. He had a label called Lava, and he wound up signing the Bayside Boys
Oh,
after
wow.
that. And we put out a record, but obviously I'm a realist to know there's not going to be a second single. Like these people, oh, we have to sign the Bayside Boys and sign to a 10 album deal. No, we don't. This is one single. These guys are going to disappear tomorrow. That's, yeah. But the major label structure is running on a 50-year-old uh prototype. Like they're look, you do this, then you do this, then you do this. So we have to sign someone. We have to secure them to 5 album deal. Nobody's selling albums anymore. Became a singles market. So why are you gonna waste all that money? Don't do that. Get the single, be happy you have the single, and move on.
You mentioned the Fugees, and the "Killing Me Softly" was a throwaway track that got good airplay in DC, and that's kind of what
Yes.
launched it. Do you think that that's a case of the it's kind of a collaborative effort from people who aren't even working for the record company, like the DJs, who may have a better sense of the pulse of the listener than the,
I'll
the
I'll
producer?
I'll interrupt you right now. You know the record I Will Survive?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody knows I Will Survive. That was the B-side. Studio 54 DJ flipped it over, found that cut. The record was Substitute on the A side. That was what the company thought was the hit.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit. I Will Survive. DJ made that whole legacy. 50 years later, Gloria Gaynor is still performing that song.
Wow.
B side, throwaway cut.
So the DJs are a lot more influential, probably, than people think in terms of.
Very, very influential. Unfortunately, they've been their power's been taken away because what used to happen in the country on the radio side, you'd have radio stations all over the country and they were all independently owned. They will all run whatever. Years, now in the last 20 years, whatever it is, like a company like Clear Channel, who owns everything and iHeartRadio and everywhere you turn. So if you're in New York, you know, you're listening to Z100. Oh, wow, I love that station. Clear Channel. Oh, want to hear light music, Light FM, Clear Channel. Oh, I want to hear hip hop, Power 105. Like Jam, yeah, Power 105. They control everything you're listening to. So now there are things called clusters. So there'll be a guy who's in charge of the East Coast, guy will charge of the Middle America, charge of the West Coast. You piss that guy off, guess what? He's not going to have your record on any of those stations. If you work with the guy and you pay him and do the right thing, guess what? That record's not going to get played all over the country. It's crazy. Years ago, Payola was a thing. What was Payola? Hey, here's a check. Here's $500 cash. Play my record. Back in the day, you used to be able to say, "Hey, I'm Johnny D. I'm the program director. Um, you take care of me. I'll put your record on my chart." Now you say, "Well, what's the difference?" I could write on a chart, "I played your record," and never play it. There was no way to tell. I could say I'm playing your record 50 times a week. Unless you're listening all day, 24 hours a day, how do I know if you're doing it? Now there's technology called BDS, which is like a fingerprint. When you make a record, you send it to this its broadcast data system, you send it to them. Every time that record gets played, they have an algorithm that picks it up all over the world. Every time of the day when it's crazy. But back
Wow.
then, there were paper ads. Oh, so and so is going to add the record. Doesn't mean he's going to play it, or he's going to play it 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. It's wild. The promotion game is has been payola. Okay, so how did that? So where did that go? So years ago, you're giving somebody cocaine, or you're giving them a stack of cash. Today, oh listen, we want to play the Jennifer Lopez record for you. We really don't love it, but we really want her to do Jingle Ball. We're gonna have this big thing at Christmas time. So, I'm on the radio. I'm on the label saying, "Well, I can't give you Jennifer Lopez for Jingle Ball if you're not playing the record." Well, all right, we're gonna play the record, but all right, this is what you're gonna do. Give us $1,000 because we're gonna make T-shirts up. So that's another angle. Well, we want money for T-shirts, right? So they get 20 labels to give them $1,000 each. Then they go to Hanes, they get shirts made for $1 a piece, and those are paid by somebody else who on the bottom of it says sponsored by Coca-Cola. It's the most ridiculous thing, bro. It's unbelievable. I get dizzy it's amazing I even remember these stories, but the corruption is heavy, heavy.
Well, let's end this with a question. What would you say your top five hip hop artists of all time are, starting with number five?
See that this is a rough one. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, I love Houdini. They don't get a lot of love. I'm gonna put Houdini at five. Um, I got I don't know if Run DMC would be. I probably put them at one regularly, but looking at everything, I mean, Run DMC is there. I love Big Daddy Kane. Um, I love ODB. And I mean, Dre's not a rapper, and I'm not a Snoop guy. So that's kind of weird because Chronic is my favorite rap album, but I can't say Dre is my favorite rapper, and Snoop definitely isn't my favorite rapper. I don't know. We're going to throw Curtis Blow in there.
Oh,
Just
I like that. I
Curtis
like
Blow.
that.
We could do
Yeah.
that. We'll Run DMC at one, maybe. Yeah, that might make sense. I mean, the Beastie Boys are great too, but I loved License to Ill. I didn't really, I mean, and the other albums are great, but I was a License to Ill guy when they started with, yeah, great, just not really me.
Well, my only issue with your list is that you don't have Melly Mel on there. But
Yeah, I know you love Melly Mel. Yes.
all right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again for another episode soon.
Yes, man. Take it easy.